performance of the persona is quite all right, as long as you know that you are not identical with the way in which you appear.
So today you've got two men who are supposedly in politics in opposition, Bush and Harriman, actually the members of the same secret society, people who appear to be in opposition politically or financially or industrially or in many ways are working together.
My name's Jeff DeRiso. I'm a video editor and producer, but what I'm really interested in is how we as a society decide what is true and what is false, and form our opinions based on that. And what I really am interested in is the role that the media plays in that. Now, the media that you may have heard is run by 5 or 6 corporations.
A media-opoly. The whole media is controlled by a few corporations thanks to deregulation by the FCC.
You mean Disney, Fox, Westinghouse, and good old GE?
So why am I here talking to you today? In my work, I influence people's minds in a way that sometimes they don't even understand. And what I want to do is now give back by showing people how media works and how it can manipulate your most basic decision-making functions. How have we gotten to this point? So we live in a highly technological age where many problems have been solved by technology, but yet we still have the very basic problems of poverty, famine, war, and the list goes on. So while many people focus on helping those who are affected by these terrible, terrible problems in our society, what I feel is my purpose is to look at what is the root cause of these problems. And I've come up with 2 very basic things, 2 very basic flaws, maybe, in our societal decision-making apparatus that has led us down this road to where we can no longer distinguish between what is true and what is not. So problem number one is that people in general are in a rush to form their opinions. And I don't know quite why this is. Perhaps it's because we all feel like we need to belong to something, and we want people around us to validate us and feel that we're a part of something. And the way that the media has programmed us to do that is with our opinions. And a great author, his name is Paulo Coelho, in one of his books says, "The world is changed by your example, not your opinion." And I think he's absolutely right. And what he means by example is your actions. What do you do that actually has an effect in the world? So if you sit on your couch every day and you believe that everyone has the right to government-funded healthcare, for example, what are you doing that's actually helping people? Your opinion isn't in itself actually helping anybody. But politics and the media has trapped you into believing that your opinion is what you should form your entire identity based around. And so I think people want to please others. And so instead of taking the time to form their opinion the right way, or the way that requires more work, they use shortcuts to forming their opinion so they can make those connections with people and be part of that collective, that group that they so long to be a part of. So what are these shortcuts? If you've ever heard of the word heuristic, it's sort of a mental shortcut that we use as humans to make decisions when we don't have all of the available information. So a great example that I like to use for this is the weather. So not everyone is a meteorologist. So what most of us do, what I do, is look at the weather app or listen to the weather person on television and take what they say and base our plans for how we're going to deal with the weather around their opinions, because they've presumably put forth a lot of effort into studying meteorology and how it works. So it makes sense that we should trust them. But at the same time, we understand that they may not always be right. So we take that heuristic, which is that mental shortcut, to believing what the weather person says, but if it doesn't turn out to be true, we're not all that upset about it because we understand that there was a risk inherent in taking that mental shortcut. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, obviously, because I do it, and we do it for a lot of things. But where the problem comes in is when we use those heuristics for forming our opinions about very complex and very important issues, such as government, taxes, military, war, healthcare, our own health. And in my opinion, those are too important issues to leave the decisions to somebody else. So this show, and why I'm making this show, is not to tell you what to think or who to vote for or what to believe. It's really more to show you how to form your own opinions by taking in all the available information instead of rushing to a conclusion because you want to belong to some sort of group. And I think we see a lot of examples of this in our society. For example, we have two political parties who have a very different idea of how the world should be, or how our society should be. But once you research and you actually look closely at politics and not just on the surface, you understand that neither side really has an accurate view of how the world really is and how it really works at the present moment. So how can we trust them to know how the world should be if they don't even have an accurate view of how the world is now? We can't, right? For example, if you're planning to vote in this election and you're voting for either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, who seem to be the presumptive nominees, you need to research a person named Jeffrey Epstein and why he's connected to both of these people. Jeffrey Epstein, and don't take my word for it, you can research this yourself, is a convicted pedophile who is also a billionaire, and he has a publicly disclosed relationship with both the Clintons and with Donald Trump. So why haven't we heard about him? Well, unfortunately, you had to look really closely to even see it at all. There was minimal media coverage about this story, but soon after, a terrorist attack in Paris made everyone forget all about the story, and nobody's followed up on it. And I find that very curious, and I ask myself, why is that? Why is nobody following up on this? And when you look into it more closely, you might start to understand. So if you're more interested in the Jeffrey Epstein angle, I'd like you to check out a guy called Ed Opperman. He's a private investigator, and he does a radio show where he talks in depth about the research that he's done in investigating this character and his connections to our politicians, and what that might mean for how the political process as a whole really works. Now, I'm not telling you that you should believe everything that this guy says, or that you should say that he's the ultimate authority, but I am saying that he is a good starting off point for learning about what's really going on in the world. So the other thing I'll mention about problem number one is when people are in a rush to form their opinions, there's another group of people who seeks to exploit that flaw in our character. They're counting on the fact that we're not going to dig into the details. And who are these people? I'll let you go into that research, and we'll get into that in future videos. This isn't about promoting any theories, conspiracy theories as you might want to call them. It's about finding out what's really going on. And once you understand what the truth and what the facts are, you can't deny them, because denying that doesn't make it go away. It doesn't make it any less true. So this practice of exploiting our reliance on mental shortcuts is called sophistry. And what is sophistry? Sophistry is an argument that appears to be true to most people, but is logically incorrect. Sophistry is, on its face, if you don't look deeper, very logical and makes a lot of sense to most people, but the underlying premises that it's built upon are completely false. So this is a very complex notion, and like I said, the people who practice this are counting on the fact that you're not going to do your homework and look into it for yourself. So when I confront people with this information, I often get very interesting reactions. I often hear people spouting a lot of cliches like, well, everyone's got their opinion, and I agree with that. Everyone does have an opinion, and everyone has the right to have an opinion. But not all opinions are created equal, right? Some opinions are built on a foundation of a lack of knowledge of the world, a foundation of ignorance. So, while yes, people have a right to have opinions that are based in ignorance, I also have the right to make fun of them for it and to call them out for it. And if they get upset about it, that says a lot about who they are as people. So that's problem number one. People are in a rush to form an opinion so they can feel like they're part of society, so they can feel like people accept them, so they can appear to be educated, so they can appear to be knowledgeable. But they're really not taking the time to seek out the actual facts to actually be knowledgeable. So what is problem number two? Problem number two is that once people have formed their opinion, hastily as it may be, they're often unwilling to let go of that opinion, even when faced with overwhelming evidence to the contrary, even when faced with overwhelming evidence that their opinion and their conclusions are built on faulty premises that hold no water because they're false. Another thing a lot of people will say to me was, why are you always focusing on the negative things? Why can't we just focus on what's good about the world and try to build that and try to foster that? And on its face, yes, that's great. I believe having a positive attitude is a very good thing. I have a girlfriend who has a way of seeing a very positive light in everything, and I think that's a completely admirable trait. But at the same time, she's not using that as an excuse to ignore facts that are in front of her, and a lot of people do that. So a lot of people will give that to me when all I'm doing is telling you a fact, and you're getting upset with me and saying that I'm negative. That says more about who you are. A fact or a truth in itself is not positive or negative. It's not good or bad. It just is. It's just a fact.
That's just the way it is. Some things will never change.
When you use that positive philosophy as an excuse to ignore the truth that's right in front of your face, to ignore a fact, then you're really forming an opinion that is going to be unhealthy and harmful to you. As the saying goes, don't shoot the messenger. Just because I'm telling you a fact doesn't mean I'm here to dethrone you and tell you that you're wrong and that you're a terrible person because you were wrong about this one thing. I'm just informing you about what the information is. This is a very touchy subject with a lot of people, and a lot of people will turn this video off because they're unwilling to let go of their opinions. And that's okay. If they're not ready to become a critical thinker and an independent thinker, they will go on that path when they're ready. But I'm making this video series called Confronting Sophistry because I'm ready to go on this path of seeking truth. And I understand that I may go awry every once in a while. And if I say something that's incorrect, please correct me. I want your feedback. I want you to be as much involved with my journey to the truth as I am. I want us to do this together because it's not an adversarial relationship. It's not about me appearing to be an authority who's right. It's about us as a collective finding what the truth is and not being attached to certain opinions that we formed in a rush. And if you're not ready to do that, fine. Go turn on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and you'll see what I'm saying. Those people are exploiting your intellectual laziness. And they did it to me too. And I personally am pissed off about it. And you'll see, and you'll come back, and we'll be here waiting for you. Because this journey isn't about me being the ultimate authority on what is true, or you believing everything I say. It's about you and me forming the faculty to build a more nuanced worldview, not based on these false dichotomies that we're given in the media, but to really base it on what's really going on in the world and how does the world work. Because the way the world appears and the way the world is are two very different things. So now that we understand the two problems, we can see the world in a different way. People are very divided, more divided than they've ever been. And in some cases, they're so divided that they they'll even espouse the idea that there is no truth. And this idea is called solipsism, that truth is only relative to your own perception. And I live in Austin, and I hear a lot of people kind of in their pseudo-philosophical tone be like, yeah, man, like, perception is reality, and like, there is no real truth, because we're all just seeing the world from our own perspectives, man. And while that sounds good on the surface, it's actually one of the most dangerous and sadly superficial ideas I've ever heard. We know by what we see around us every day that that's not true. When police set out to solve a crime, they know that there's only one explanation to how this crime was committed. There's only one explanation for how JFK was killed. There's only one explanation for what happened on September 11th, 2001. There's only one explanation for who orchestrated the Oklahoma City bombings. There's only one explanation for these things. So when you start researching these things and you find facts that contradict what the official story is and what's portrayed by the media, that's when you really begin to realize how deep this game goes and how deeply we've been programmed to completely detach from the whole concept of truth, and that truth is immutable and truth is true whether you believe in it or not, right? In Galileo's time, Galileo didn't say, well, everyone else believes the sun revolves around the earth, so I guess it must be true. No, Galileo observed facts that contradicted what everyone around him was telling him. And so Galileo stood up for that. So I want us to be like Galileo. I want us to be the people who are able to see the truth and not be pressured to fit into society and rush to a conclusion because we want to fit in and appear to be smart. We want to observe what's really going on around us. And sometimes that may be confirmed by society, and sometimes society is completely right about certain things. I'm not saying everything society and authority says is wrong, but what I am saying is we need to base what we think is true on our observations and on our research, and not just on what someone told us is true. So thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more videos on Confronting Sophistry.